Thank you, choir. The only thing better than one choir video in worship is two choir videos. And I appreciate all the work that went into all of producing the music here, so thank you. What shall we do with this useless beauty? I'll explain the title later, but first a story. A young man in January in Washington, D.C., in a t-shirt and jeans and a baseball cap, walks with his violin case and stops in the subway station. He opens it, takes out his violin, and he starts to play. It was rush hour. 63 people passed before one man turned his head as he kept walking. A woman put $1 in the violin case as she walked by. 6 minutes before someone stopped to listen. The person played for 43 minutes. 1,097 people passed him, and only 7 people stopped to listen. 27 gave money. Many children tried to stop to listen and were carried off by their parents. I know I've been that parent carrying off my daughter when I had somewhere I really needed to go. He was playing a 300-year-old Stradivarius violin, one of the most well-made violins in the world. And he played one of the most elegant and technically challenging pieces of classical music ever written. He was a world-famous violinist, Joshua Bell. And 2 days previously, he had sold out a show in Boston where thousands of people were buying tickets for $100. His busking for 43 minutes earned him $32.17. One person recognized who he was. And Joshua Bell was asked to do this as an experiment with the Washington Post to see if people would stop to acknowledge beauty and talent in their everyday lives. Apparently not. I think that's an amazing story of this person who's famous. People were paying thousands of dollars to go and hear that beauty, to experience that with this great musician. But then when they come across it in their everyday life, when they're getting to work during rush hour, they don't notice it. And I think that's one of the important elements of beauty. It is around us, but we're not always open to seeing it. And the author, Elaine Scarry, in her essay on beauty says, beauty is life-saving, beauty quickens, it adrenalizes, it makes a heartbeat faster, life more vivid, animated, living, worth living. It comes to us with no work of our own, and leaves us prepared to undertake a giant labor. Now, of course, beauty is a loaded term. Our media makes so much beauty about the physical appearance of people. Now, as you can imagine, looking at me, I'm not an example of that. So I want to focus on that idea of spiritual and emotional beauty. But I also want to invite each of us, as the story that Matt de la Peña said, when you look in the mirror and you see your face, do you see beauty? Do you see love? Do you see that inner beauty, that inner caring, that inner compassion, that inner loving kindness that is part of each of us? Can we see that? Can we see beyond the skin, beyond the physical appearance, to the heart of who each of us are when we look in the mirror? And so that is what I'm going to invite you to be your calling today and the days ahead, is to see life's beauty and one another's beauty, and see the beauty within yourself and respond to that with love and courage, as Matt de la Peña invited us to do. Can you see one another's beauty beyond the skin? Can you see your own beauty beyond the skin and physical appearance? So why am I emphasizing embracing beauty at this time? We live in an ugly time. We have the pandemic that's totally disrupted our lives. We've got political division that's tearing our nation apart. Many of you saw and read my reports of Natalie and Isla's experience in Texas with the weather and electricity outage. And there's still 30,000 people in Texas without power. And there's ongoing racism in our society, and that overarching anxious producing element of climate change that we're all still struggling with. So why am I talking about beauty today? Have I just totally lost it as the pandemic got to me and I'm not even in touch with reality? I think beauty can be a response to ugly times, because I think to transform a situation, you need to replace it with its opposite. And we can replace ugliness with beauty. And Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, one of our preeminent religious thinkers, reflected in the great African Americans writer James Baldwin's essay, The Fire Next Time. And he observes that during the essay, he's talking about all the problems of racism he'd experienced in our life that's still with us in our society. The beaten down and torn part of humanity, marred by the devastating exploitations of racial justice. James Baldwin explores that in grim detail. And then at the end, James Baldwin says, the question remains, what shall we do with all this beauty? And he evokes the resistance and persistence of beauty, the face of the holy shining through human beings, even in the midst of all that we do to often deface one another. And finally, Baldwin makes this prophetic call, the call of so many artists. It's not an outrage, it's not a call to outrage and pity, which merely demands the privilege become paternalistic. It's a call to all of us to come together before the sacred altar of beauty and be transformed by its gentle and fierce insistence. A call to all of us to come together before the sacred altar of beauty and be transformed by its gentle and fierce insistence. And I think our special offering, our special offering today to the food bank, that's an example of moral beauty, where through generosity we are helping those, because no one in our country should be without food. No one in our country should be without electricity or power or water. And we are called to address that. That is an act of moral beauty. Beauty is life-saving. Beauty transforms and beauty inspires. Now, what about this useless beauty element in the title of the sermon? Well, that goes back, James Baldwin's question was not enough for the English musician Elvis Costello, and he had an album and a song called What Shall We Do With All This Useless Beauty? And I've always been intrigued by that title, what shall we do with all this useless beauty? And I think beauty is only useless if we're not open to it, if we're not aware from it, if we don't do our part to create it in our lives, then it is useless beauty. But we can be open to it. We can stop in that subway station and listen to beautiful music. If we can take that act to be generous and give food to those who are hungry in our society, that is an act of beauty. We are creating that act. And I'm standing here in our sanctuary right now with the beautiful wood, the beautiful pulpit, the chalice, and there's a great beauty here. I see the curtains with the sun coming in, the shadows are cast on the curtains there, and there's a beauty to that. We have the mobile, we have the center of interest. These are elements where we as a community create beauty for the community. Beauty is only useless if we don't not open to it, if we don't create it, and if we don't appreciate it. There's a beauty for me every Sunday in seeing your faces, even on the screen in your little cubes, seeing your faces there, smiling, laughing, drinking your coffee, lying in bed in your pajamas. It's all beautiful. And I'm open to it. So you look at the screen, you don't need to look at me. Look at the screen, look at the beauty that's there that this community provides. I've even got the beauty of Grant and John masked there staring at their computer screens. There's a beauty there that brings me comfort every Sunday. Find the beauty in our life. We all need the beauty during this pandemic. I always think of that when we walk along and you see cracks in the sidewalk and there's a flower growing. There's a great beauty, and the beauty of nature is so important to us. In Unitarian Universalism, we have the flower communion where we co-create the beauty and share it with one another. I always love that idea when you see a crack in the sidewalk and some force of nature, some seed got in there and it's growing in places it really shouldn't be growing. The geography professor Yi-Fu Tuan says, a spontaneous act of generosity performed with unselfish grace is an example of moral beauty. As are certain acts of courage, genuine modesty is a possible example, as is selfless love. And although moral beauty is a natural gift, it is nevertheless more likely to emerge and flourish in societies that appreciate and encourage it. Moral beauty is more likely to emerge and flourish in societies that appreciate and encourage it. So, how can each of us more deeply appreciate and encourage engagement with beauty? Help us to be open to the beauty around us, seek out beauty, or create beauty in our own life through the arts, through music. I think many of us come Sunday mornings to hear the beautiful music that our choir, Dawn and Larry, provide for us, and many other musicians there. Now, we all may not have Joshua Bell playing in our house every morning, but we do. You think of the music and the beauty that's available in your house through streaming from the internet or through CDs or LPs or tapes. We have beauty in our house. We have visual arts in our house created by ourselves or someone else. We have pictures. I invite each of us to find a way and create a spiritual practice of engaging with beauty every day. I know I have items in my house that have Natalie kindly let me move to my flat in Redwood City of an Afghan rug that brings me great beauty, an engraved wooden table, which sometimes I just cast keys and papers on or scarves, and sometimes I deeply appreciate as I leave every morning. Find items of beauty that connect you with that which is best within and outside of each of us. Now I'm wearing this stole of wildflowers. I don't know how well you can see it, but Texas wildflowers are an example of resilience beauty. You see these wildflowers throughout Texas in the spring and early summer, even when it's already hot. And for me, the Texas landscape is not the most beautiful landscape I've ever experienced in the world, but these wildflowers popping up there create great beauty. And that was conscious by Lady Bird Johnson, L.B. Lyndon, President Johnson's wife, who decided that we needed to have more wildflowers. And when you drive in these freeways, there's embankments full of these wildflowers, the bluebells and the Indian paintbrushes popping up, and it creates beauty there. And we can all create beauty and experience beauty. I had an experience many years ago when my mum was struggling with Alzheimer's. And she'd been taken into hospital, and I went back to visit, and I was talking to the doctor, and I was leaving the hospital, and I realized we were going to have to put my mum into a home. She could no longer care for herself. I was standing there, and that was a huge decision, and I was really kind of struggling with it. And I was waiting for the bus from the hospital to go back home, and it was in February or March, and it was snowing. And I was standing beside this car dealership where the bus stop was, and there was barbed wire around it. You know, and barbed wire is one of the uglier things you experience in an environment. And I was looking at it, and it was snowing. And over time, I saw these, the jags of the barbed wire eventually get covered up in snow. And over time, the bus was late, so I was there for about 45 minutes. And so eventually I saw it, I saw the barbed wire disappear. And there was these strings of wire with these bundles of snow along there. And it was incredibly beautiful. And I saw that transformation of something ugly and dangerous into something soft and beautiful through that. And I'll remember that. And it brought me a lot of comfort in a difficult time for me. And so you can experience beauty in some of the strangest places. Barbed wire snow on a bus stop's not the first place you would look for beauty, but it's there if we can be open to it. Maybe I was just cracked open a little bit more raw than usual due to the circumstances around my mum. There's a spiritual importance to beauty because it can be a source of sustenance, nurture, and resilience in difficult times, as it was for me then. And I invite us all to find rituals of renewal regarding beauty. Consciously find beauty in our lives. It could be the beauty of a person, a family member, a neighbor. It can be beauty of gardening. It might even be the beauty of pulling out weeds and transplanting them to the nearest compost home. I think there's a beauty in weeds, but that's mainly because that's what my garden's full of. But find the beauty where it is. Find the beauty in act. Find the beauty in co-creating art, the beauty in music. Make that a part of our everyday life. Because beauty is anything but useless. It is life-saving, beauty transforms, and beauty inspires.